what's up? Hello. It is us again. Recently we were asked to rank our books that we read in high school, to do a definitive listing of those. And so we sat down and we thought about it, and it turns out that we have read a lot of books over the course of 4 years. So we have taken a selection of 20, probably from 11th and 12th grade, so when we were 16, 17.
There's a couple from freshman and sophomore year, so 14, 15. Mm-hmm. But the majority are our last 2 years in high school.
Exactly. So they're a bit fresher in our minds. We've taken those 20 and we have ranked them in a list that we have agreed upon from worst to best. So you can get a taste of what our reading lives were like at the beginning of our journey into our reading friendship. Firstly, to start at the bottom, we begin with the James Joyce classic, The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. This book is a stream of consciousness, and I'm pretty sure he just tells it from the life of the character from birth onward, and does not stop for things such as punctuation or sense.
Yeah, this is the bottom book on our list for a good reason, because neither of us could finish it.
Yeah.
And
it's the only book in high school I think that either of us didn't finish.
I feel like I read everything else, and this is the only one that I could not do.
And I don't feel bad about it, frankly.
Like, I remember a moo cow, and I remember it being awful.
Down the lane. The moo cow was down the lane.
That's all I remember.
Yes.
It was the worst. There are better books to have 16-year-olds read than Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man.
Exactly. And there are lots of people out there who have a lot of excellent things to say about this book, and it's used as a piece of classic Irish literature, but it did not work for us.
No. Number 19 is one that I have mentioned before as being a book I really don't like, and that's Wide Sargasso Sea. We read this after we read Jane Eyre, and it was just an awful book to read afterwards. I was just personally offended that somebody would try and benefit off of the awesomeness that is Jane Eyre and just do it so poorly. Like, the book could have worked, but I just think the way it was told was just... It didn't provide the context that we should have had.
Yeah, it doesn't give you the kind of information that you want to look for to tell you more about the story. It's written as a revisionist text, and it's supposed to explain to you pre-Jane Eyre how Bertha gets to England. And it doesn't do that well, and it doesn't do that in a way that is interesting, although it does tell you a lot about race and, I think, political relations at the time. That's the only nice thing I have to say about it. Also, the cover was really hideous. Number 18 is Grendel. We did a whole unit in our AP Literature class about revisionist texts, and so we read the originals and then we read their texts that followed them. Grendel is the villain's perspective of the epic poem Beowulf, and it did not provide, again, what we wanted to accompany the original text, and it was
unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a villain book, but it was a horrible villain book. Like, it just, I don't know. It was not good.
It didn't work. To be fair, we had a lot of people in class. I remember there were a couple of people that really enjoyed it.
But that was not us.
And that was not us at all. And it's funny because it's gotten a lot of critical acclaim, and I just want to know what those people were thinking when they wrote those reviews.
And to continue on this train here, number 17 is Beowulf. And not that Beowulf was awful, it was our first experience with an epic poem, and we obviously didn't read, like, the Middle English version, we read the English version. We read a translation, but it still was just not that exciting to a 17-year-old. There were certain aspects of it I'm sure we enjoyed, but, like, my general feeling after reading it was like, eh.
It was the first book that we read that year.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us knew how to start that. Perhaps that's more of a commentary on the school system, but none of us knew how to get into that.
Yeah, I think maybe they were trying because it was, like, a shorter read, and so they were trying to be like, hey, this is AP Literature, get ready. And they're like, this is short, but it's like nothing you've ever read before, most likely. And that certainly was the case for us.
Number 16 is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which we were asked to read in the 10th grade. It was the first book that we read that year as well. And it was our first time reading something for school and dissecting a book that had dialect in it. It was our first Mark Twain, I think, and we read it in a class that was all about like the American experience and the upcoming of American literature, and it was taught concurrently with like a history course. So it was topically relevant to what we were being taught in terms of social studies. We discovered the controversial aspect of it, especially with the language that is used, and it
that was a challenge, but it was
Yeah.
it was still an adventure story, so I think
I'm gonna
that
sneeze.
helped.
go on. Go on.
So yeah, the dialect was definitely a challenge, but it was still an adventure story, and I think that's where the appeal came from. It was still this kid going on an adventure, meeting people, and
Yeah.
just like what he would have experienced in a location that many of us
Have
had
never
never
been
been to, and definitely during a time period that none of us have been to.
Yeah.
It had its good parts, but overall I think it was generally kind of a struggle for us. So, I mean, we were 15 at the time,
Yeah.
so, you know,
We're
that's definitely stepping
encouraged.
into the challenging realm for a
Yeah.
15-year-old for reading.
We were encouraged to read Tom Sawyer, I think, afterward, and I don't think any of us did.
Number 15 is The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, and this was another read from American Experience, the same class that we read Huckleberry Finn in, and this was my first time ever reading a play. I'm sure there were people reading it out loud, and I know that we were supposed to like act out bits of it, but it was kind of a sad play.
It's a very sad play. This is the book that introduced me to being sad. It was excellent, and I can remember everyone else in the class really not liking it, and I wrote an essay in defense of its literary qualities, but I think
There were some good subtleties in it.
it's philosophical. It's got a lot of subtlety, and unless you spend time picking it apart, and the whole class was just looking for symbolism.
Yeah.
Like, that was the point, and like talking about how the pieces of Americana that had influenced the way the text had been written, and what is the point of Laura keeping all of these things, and Laura's candles, and the lights are out, and when you get past all of that,
Yeah. Might have been a little dramatic, but as you
It was a
mentioned,
play.
it's a play.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey we read in the 11th grade. It was the first book that we read for that class as well. We also got to watch the movie, but we didn't get to watch the whole movie, just very specific parts, which is a lot of what I remember.
Yeah,
and
same.
It's also sort of deeply philosophical and sort of questions epistemological foundations of truth, and also has some very excellent quotes. It's the truth, even if it didn't happen. I think it's an interesting account of mental health as well,
Yes.
and that profession and that being brought up in a time when that wasn't really being touched upon. But it was excellent writing. It was one of those unreliable narrator type of things. You didn't always know
A little
what was
confusing
going
at
on with
times.
Bromden.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that was the point. You know, you're supposed to be a bit confused probably. And it just the setting and everything, it sticks with you.
Yeah,
It's one
it
of those
stays with
ones,
you.
it's, you know, we're getting into the middle of our list. That's number 14. So like we're getting into the books that were like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
decent.
Yeah. I would like to read that again. I think.
And then watch the whole movie.
And then I watched the whole movie.
Number 13 is The Catcher in the Rye. Now, if I had been making a personal list, this one would have been a little bit farther down, but she likes it, so
You have to
here
like
it is.
Holden to like the book.
Yes, and
once
you liked Holden.
Once you understand where Holden is coming from, and you get that he is, coming of age and like doesn't like anybody, he's just frustrated
And he's
and
an annoying
mad,
little
and
shit.
he's annoying and just likes his little red hat, and that's it. And just thinks that everybody is a phony. Like, once you get on board with that, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
a great book.
But I couldn't get on board with it. Holden annoyed me, and because Holden is The Catcher in the Rye, like, it's his book.
Yeah.
If you don't like Holden, it's going to be really hard for you to like the book.
Yeah.
And so that was where I fell. It was kind of a blah book overall for me. I think there was a lot of expectation built into it because it is like The Catcher in the Rye. It's like one of those top 10 books that people reference.
Yeah.
And so to finally get to it and be let down, that's hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember people always talking about it like, oh, this is such a boy book. Like, there were so many boys that were like, oh, yeah, no, it's
Holden.
great. Yeah, I'm just like him. Number 12 is a book that both of us have brought up, I think, a number of times on this channel. It's John Irving's A Prayer for Owen Meany, which I really, really enjoy. I think it is terribly well written. I think it questions moral philosophy and is incredibly useful in looking back on one's life, especially questioning your religion. And I love to question religion, and I think Owen is such a special character and written in such an excellent way, and it is an excellent piece of of literature in showing literary tools. And also I think Holden is one of the most hilarious figures that I have come across. I recommend this book to everyone, and you don't agree.
I'm like trying so hard not to laugh because it's just so the opposite feeling that I have about everything. I don't have a lot of memories of this book other than like trying to read it over the summer and being like, oh my god, why do I have to read this? It's so Owen is annoying, and that is the point. I mean, he's written with that all caps thing, so being annoyed by him, like, okay, that's kind of the point, but I couldn't see past that, I guess. Just like with Holden, I couldn't see past it, and so it was hard for me to like really get into the story. I'd have to read it again if I was really ever going to say anything about it, but
I have said things about it. See my review.
Now I'm gonna have to leave.
Yep,
that.
yes you are. I was sitting here while you were talking to me like, what side of the screen is that going to appear on?
Number 11 is The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This was a read from AP English, so junior year. I feel like it really helped that we were able to talk about that book in class, because if I had just read it on my own, I feel like I would have been like, but being able to talk it over with people made me understand a lot of the commentary that was there, that was under the surface, and I really liked that once I was able to sit down and actually look it over and analyze it, which is kind of contrary to what people tend to like to do in high school. Usually it's like, oh, I don't want to analyze the shit out of this book.
Just want to talk about whether they liked it or not,
Yeah, whereas with The Metamorphosis, I felt that that was a benefit of the book. The book wasn't super long. We had the ugliest copies. I remember. I could still picture the ugly copies that we had. But like, it wasn't a very long book, and I'm glad we read that one.
I reference it all the time, and it occurs to me just how many people haven't read it, because I talk about it a lot. I agree with everything you've said. Unusually.
Excellent.
Number 10, right in the middle, Animal Farm by George Orwell. I really enjoy this book. It is an excellent allegory for the Russian Revolution. It really makes you question how you interact with other people and othering and equality, and there are scores and scores of reviews and dissertations and academic classes about George Orwell, and particularly this book. We read this in what, 9th grade?
9th grade.
Yes, very long ago. We were 14, and
I think they hoped the animals would help.
Yes, no, it was excellent. If you love Orwell, you know you love this book. How much more can I say about it? I have the greatest copy.
It's a piece of literature for the ages.
It is. When you think of literature, this is the book you should think of.
I don't have anything further to say either. That's solid.
It's because you know I'm right.
Number 9 is A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. This is, of course, another play. This one was the final play that I learned in high school. This was our AP Literature class, and we have distinct memories of us volunteering to read different parts, because like, what's the point of doing a play if you're not gonna have people in the class read it?
We all sat in a circle.
And there was one point where
I own this book
we got
now.
we got to play the together characters.
We did.
We were married, which is just, you know, fits along with what a lot of people thought about us in the past. We were trying to have fun with it, because when you have this opportunity in class, like, this was a small class of people. It wasn't like we were all, like it was a fun group of people to be around.
These
more
were
or less
people that were also motivated in the same way to read the books that we were, so it was easier to sort of joke with them.
Yeah, so I feel like just because we have these fun memories of it, we put this book higher up on the list than maybe it might have been if we hadn't had that opportunity to kind of have fun with it and joke around.
Frankly, this is going to get a lot of comments. I think it's one of Shakespeare's more accessible books to read, like, because we had to have a Shakespeare requirement, and the classes before us had read King Lear and Hamlet and the Scottish play, and we got this, and we also read it in conjunction with AMND, which was a graphic novel, or part of a graphic novel.
I have, like, no recollection
I remember, like, reading a chapter of that, and then reading the chapter that corresponded with it in the original text, and, like, having to talk about that. But I think we were taught it in a really fun way, and I think that's why it stuck with us, as opposed to, like, if we had to get up there and read Romeo and Juliet, you know, like, you hear every classic high school tale about having to do that.
Yeah, whereas we did more like a large, fun cast of characters.
Number 8, Charles Dickens, Great Expectations. We read this over the summer leading up to our 11th grade English class, and it really took a toll on a lot of people. A lot of people didn't like it. I don't think they really liked the language, but I think we both really enjoyed it. Pip is one of those people who you either love or you hate.
And in this case, I actually kind of liked him.
Yeah, I enjoyed him. I enjoyed Miss Havisham and Estella more, mostly because they were sad, and I enjoyed their emotional depth. But also, there's enough sort of adventure. He's poor and like trying to make his way, like almost gets attacked in a graveyard, I think.
And it was well written.
The description is good. It's Dickensian, like it was
classic. Solid. It was a good first experience with that, because it is a bigger book, so you're hoping that you're going to like it, because it's a few hundred pages to get through if you're not going to like it.
And asking students to read it over the summer when they
write an essay about it.
Yeah, other things they want to be doing.
So I'm glad that it was definitely a more positive reading experience.
It was indeed.
Number 7 is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. This was another fun book to read that I feel like if I had read it on my own, I would have been sitting there thinking, what's going on? Like, what is going on? Yeah. Whereas because we read it with a class, we were able to talk it over and rehash the situation in a way that might be more understandable, and just generally had a interesting, fun time going over it.
And to think about what was happening in the war at that point, and how much of Joseph Heller's influence from his own life he wrote into the story. It's dark. It's like darkly comical.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Absurdist. It's close to my heart because parts of it are set in Malta, or at least Malta gets mentioned, and I was just in Malta, and I think it's so funny how that happened. Number 6 is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, which I recently reviewed. What a story. Ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time. Still very popular right now with the series when panic reading is all the rage.
Just so relevant.
I really feel like I shouldn't have to say anything about The Handmaid's Tale.
Number 5 is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I actually have a copy of this book because we had to buy our own copies because this was the first time we were ever instructed to annotate a book. So it was both of our first experience actually like writing things in the book. I don't even know if you can see that, but it was, that was a little stressful.
If you remember actually back a number of years ago when that was a big controversy on BookTube, writing in books versus not writing in books, we are firmly on the side of the camp that does not put pen to page.
I'm not going to yell at somebody for doing it. It's your book. You can do what you want. But personally, it's not something I want to do. But back to the book of Mrs. Dalloway. This is a stream of consciousness book, and it actually works really well. And that's something that was nice because after reading The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, which was a bad version of Stream of Consciousness, this was actually enjoyable, and it surprised us because I don't think we were expecting to like it as much as we did. It's much shorter, and maybe that helped with it. It wasn't as much of a slog to get through, but I don't know, I liked the characters.
Like, bits and pieces of that come back to me much more than Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man at all, or anything I've read by Joyce.
And it would be interesting to sort of reread this and just see what notes I left, like what stuck out to me, and see how I feel now. So there are certainly some benefits to annotating.
Yeah, and look back and see what the things we were asked to read for come up.
Because I'm sure we wrote something about it after.
No, we totally did.
Yeah.
We used to take quizzes. We used to take 10-question quizzes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, number 4 is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. This is a book recounting Vietnam. Definitely about war. I really thought this book was fine.
She's not into it.
It was fine.
It's high on this list because I really liked it. And I liked getting those stories because it wasn't a nonfiction account, it was a fictional account, but the stories were based off of actual experiences of soldiers in Vietnam. And I just thought the writing was really accessible, like it was a good, solid read. The stories were interesting, intense, sad, even maybe like horrifying sometimes because it was Vietnam. But I liked how it all came together, and I think that was one that was like a pretty big hit with our class as well.
It was.
Because it was such a solid read in kind of all aspects.
Number 3 is The Hours. I actually own this book because I enjoyed it so much. This is the revisionist text to Mrs. Dalloway and follows 3 different women and their 3 struggles in life, one of whom is Virginia Woolf, and it provided a lot of insight into showing how the story was supposed to work, and I think having annotated the book at first allowed us to really understand what came afterward. We also watched the movie. That one we watched the whole film for.
Yes. And it was worth it. I think the movie was good too, but obviously like the focus is on the book here. And I think because it was written very recently, that helped. The language was more accessible than some of the older books that we had read, and there was something to be found in each of the characters because we were focusing on 3 different women and how they were kind of the same but also very different. And I think overall there was a pretty general like
consensus that it was good.
Yeah. And that's how it ended up being number 3 on here because I think it's a really good book. And it was fun to actually read a book like that for an AP class because you tend to think of those classes as being for learning about things that were, written a while ago. Right. Number 2 is Jane Eyre, which probably isn't a huge surprise to many people. This is a really fantastic book that has lots of different elements that you could talk about. You could certainly make a really long video analyzing this book. So many people have read it. Lots of people have opinions, but one thing that I think was really interesting for us was the reversal of gender roles and sort of their behavior.
Their characterizations, yeah.
And especially the fact that this book was written so long ago, and you could actually really root for Jane as a character, and it was a little challenging to read at times, but not so much that it took away from the story. Like, it pushed you just enough. It's a big book. I mean, your copy is exceptionally large.
Yeah.
But generally, it was just like a good, solid read. Like, I have very positive memories in my experience with that. Someday, I will buy my own prettier version of the book than this. Book.
I remember just being so offended by people who had bad things to say about this in class.
Oh, how could they?
And last, but by absolutely no means the least, is F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Probably one of the most highly acclaimed pieces of American literature, an excellent account of the Jazz Age, as is the majority of his work. Each character is sort of a personification of an element of that time. You know, you can see how Daisy is the embodiment of new money, and you can see how Gatsby is the embodiment of old money and unrequited love, and Nick is trying to sort himself out, and say what you will about the Baz Luhrmann film, I thought it was excellent and really beautifully done.
Good soundtrack.
An excellent soundtrack as well, and it stuck with me for so long. I own 2 copies of this book, and it's the book that I read when I feel terribly sad, because you can't really get much sadder than Jay Gatsby, I don't think.
Yeah, and this is the only book on this list that I have reread.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. I haven't reread any of these books. This is the this is the only one that I've reread, and I actually liked it more on the reread because maybe when we read this one in class, this was 10th grade.
We were asked
for us
to look for certain things.
Yeah, and I think that took away from the overall reading experience. That was definitely an example of overanalyzing a book, whereas when I got to read it for me, I really enjoyed it, and I got to really take in the whole picture. And yeah, I mean, I also love this copy so much.
Thinking about the emotional depth of the characters and sort of what meaning you can derive rather than being directed to, like, look at the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg.
Yeah. And
we get it. We've seen them on several pages now.
Yeah, and the characters are so interesting. You love them and you also hate them at the same time. Like, this book just really could pull you in, and it's like the perfect length too. It's just everything about this book is so great.
You can think for hours about why Daisy wants her baby to be a fool. Like, what kind of a question is that?
What kind of an answer is that?
What kind of an answer is that?
Yeah, it's
the
just
best thing
good.
a girl can be. See, this is why you read this book.
Woohoo! We did it. There was a lot of prep involved in this. Thank you for sticking through the entire video because I know it's a lot of information being thrown at you, but we hope you appreciated a detailed look at a large number of books.
It occurred to us just how many books we were able to get through in a year when we were being asked to read.
Yeah, because this is a lot of them, but it's not all of them. Let us know if you had books that you were forced to read in high school that you didn't like, because everybody likes grumbling about a few books that they were forced to read here and there. And if you also want to share your favorite book that you read in high school, you can definitely do that in the comments below as well.
What's your Great Gatsby? What's your portrait of the artist as a young man?
As always, all of our links are down in the doobly-doo. You can check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and
that brings this video to
a close.